looks like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away.
All right, here we are, still here. Still here, but now we're about to leave. Thank God. What day is it? It's Friday, September 5th. Man, this is my very frustrated look. It's funny, when I get real frustrated or real super angry or whatever, it's just when shit flies, I tend to get calmer and quieter. Rarely do I ever snap, ever. But inside, there's a storm going on. Like, I don't know what it is, with fishing or hunting, I can't stand being late. Like, that will drive me bonkers. I was laughing with Sarah last night. She said something about that. And I said, yeah, when it comes to hunting, if I was told I had cancer and I couldn't do anything, I'd still go hunting if I could walk. I don't care. That's priority. Even over my health, probably. I don't know why. That's my heaven out there, and it's not about killing something or making sure I get something. I just need to be out there. That's my home. She knows it. That's my home. Anyway, yeah, September 5th. This is the first time ever. I don't even know when the last time was that I wasn't in my spot for opening morning, which really sucks because for all you people who don't understand, it's like this particular moment in life for the frustration. I went by myself to the middle of frickin' nowhere looking for a new zone that I always drove by with the horses on the way up to go guiding. And finally I did it. You know, it's all those years driving the Alaska Highway thinking, man, I wonder what's over there. I wonder what's over there. I bet there's something there. Put the time in. I found this. I spied this area, put the time in by myself. I never was taken there. Nobody ever gave me a hint. I checked it out. I learned it. Finally figured out where all the elk winter, that there was elk there, big bucks too. I figured out where the elk wintered, and I had a funny feeling where they might go and grow their antlers in the spring and summertime, and where they may be for opening season before they really venture out and spread out. And I nailed it. And then I started going a little later, and then I started figuring out, nope, that one particular area, but putting all this time into and learning the area, which is huge for your success. And I finally figured out, no, if I can be here for opening morning, I should be able to get one. Well, it's been 3 years in a row that I was there for opening morning. And got a bull every single time, or got my friend a shot at a bull, or a couple shots at bulls over 2 years. Anyway, either way, if I could be there for opening morning, I know I'm going to get one. And that's something to work forward to, right? And then all the time and work, nonstop, and organizing and getting dialed in and getting the fishing done and getting the farm sitters here on time, getting our ferry reservation, and then being blasted, stopped dead. Oh, it's really hard for me to swallow. But whatever, you deal with it. But anyway, I just found out, so the brain box for my truck, for those of you who are curious, and some people have reached out to me for some suggestions for help. It's a Tippums box. It's where all your little fuses and electrodes and electronics go to in your vehicle. And it failed. And my mechanic's been looking everywhere. All the wrecking yards, the auto parts, they're all on websites. You can find out what they got. Can't find it. But there's one business in Ontario that rebuilds them. And he's waiting for the reply from them. And even then, it takes a week to 2 weeks to get that done. Oh! Anyway, I started looking for more trucks. So, Sarah had a Tahoe when we first moved here. And thing was starting to break, costing a lot of money in gas and parts. And finally, a tree fell on her with her and Chippy and the daughter in the Tahoe driving to town last year. Scared the shit out of everybody. Nobody's hurt, thank God. They wrote it off. And I talked her into buying a little piss pot car. She calls it the roller skate. But it's so cheap on fuel, it's ridiculous and dependable. And it costs next to nothing. And she finally jumped on the program of, who gives a shit what you drive? It's not going to change anything about you. You're saving money. You're not losing money. Anyway, but in the meantime, been putting money aside to try to save up and possibly buy her a nice little truck that'll have ton. I'm like, okay, well, we got to go. There's no way. I can't wait. I can't wait 2 weeks to get my pickup. I looked at the options of rentals. What was it? Way too much money. I even looked at renting a U-Haul van to put my quad trailer behind. And then I found a mint spotless Silverado 2016. I mean, this thing doesn't have a scratch on it. And had a new transmission because apparently that year transmission, there was a huge class action lawsuit against Chevrolet because of all the transmissions blowing up. So the transmission's already been replaced with the proper one. And it is absolutely mint. Got a great deal on it. So we got a truck. Got it yesterday. And then we got it. After I do this, I'm going to go to loading it all up properly with all the gear. It's a little smaller than my Ram. I like my Dodge. I like my Bush truck better. It's got more punch. I just like it better. But whatever. It'd be a good little safe truck. Safer for Sarah to be driving that around than her little roller skate car. I've driven that thing a couple times, and man, it's intimidating when you think about somebody screwing up and hitting you in a small car. Ugh, I'd rather have her in a pickup. Anyway, there you go. We're out of here. Problem solved. And then when we get back, my Dodge should be ready to go, and she can have the spotless truck with no scratches. Whereas me, I don't give a shit. I don't care. As long as everything's brand new and wicked underneath from end to end and gets me up in the middle of nowhere and gets me out, that makes me happy. And I beat the shit out of them. I'm not even going to pretend I don't. I beat the shit out of vehicles because I use them for what they're supposed to be used for. Pickups, 4x4s, right? But it's kind of, we had to pull up beside my Dodge yesterday to get some stuff out of it. It's like looking at the paint on my Dodge and the paint on this thing is slowing like, whoops. Whoopsies, but whatever. I'll be careful with this one while I drive it until mine's home. So we're out of here. We are out of here. Now, we need to hear some people. This email is titled, A Story of My Encounter. Hi, my name is Rodney. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Arkansas. My family owns around 900 acres of land in the northwest side of the state. I like to take hikes and hunt on the land. Then sometimes I'll go camping out there and to get away from my troubles. Oh. Sad to hear you're troubled. I don't like hearing that. So I went camping 6 months ago, and I brought my fishing gear and a rifle along because I wanted to stay out there for a couple of days, and they had a creek that I could fish for food. It was late afternoon, and some snow was on the ground. I was fishing when I heard something that sounded like it was heavy, so I grabbed my rifle because black bears have been a problem on the land lately, and I wasn't going to be surprised by a sow and her cubs. So I sat there, and I could hear what it was get closer and closer, and then it stopped at the tree line across the creek. It was a giant, and I would have sworn it was 9 feet across your shoulders. It was blackish gray color and walked slouched over, and all I could think about was keeping it in my rifle's sights, but I knew I couldn't shoot because I was so scared. It noticed me about 10 yards out of the tree line, and it kind of looked at me, weighing out what to do, and it made a roaring, almost screaming sound that rattled inside my chest like a concert when you sit too close to the speakers. All I knew to do was to get the hell out of there, and I went back after the snow cleared. I didn't find anything out of the ordinary, and I didn't expect to because it was frozen ground when it happened. I haven't been camping there since. I tell my friends this story, and they all say someone had to be playing a prank on me, but I knew what I saw. Like you said, you don't really believe in these things until you see them. End of story. All right, man. Appreciate that email, and maybe email me back. Let me know how you're doing. All right? Let me know how you're doing. How are things going, and if you learned anything else or had any other experiences, or you got something you want to share with everybody here, because we give a shit here, all right, man? Email it back again anytime. This next email is titled Momo. Hi, Steve. My name is Tom from Missouri. My story originated in the 70s. I and 3 other friends were riding around in the country just east of Independence, Missouri, drinking beer as teens do. It was dark going down this gravel road, fields on both sides of the road. I looked over and I seen a creature running across the field. And he had to have been at least 7.5 feet tall. This creature jumped the fence, bounded across the road in about 3 strides, jumped the other fence, and kept on running. This scared the guy driving so bad, he floored the vehicle he was traveling. We was traveling around 100 miles per hour, and I was yelling at him to slow down. It was like he didn't even hear me. The others were yelling too, but it was like he didn't hear us. I finally had to reach down and pull his foot off the accelerator before he finally came to his senses. This creature was hair-covered. The hair even hung down over his face. And believe me when I say we didn't go back. We did not have the windows down, so I don't know if there was a stench or not. And that's my story. I no longer live in Independence. I live at 80 miles south, but that is what happened to us, being in our late teens. Enjoy your program and the way you enjoy your family. I and my wife was going to go camping in the Northwest Territories to see if we could have any experiences. But alas, it wasn't to be. My wife passed away. Sorry, but alas, it wasn't to be. My wife passed away. Sorry to hear that, man. Thank you for your time telling all these experiences. And there you go. Welcome to the club, man. Sorry to hear about your wife passing. Gonna go camping in the Northwest Territory. Now, is that Northwest Territory of where you were, or the Canadian Northwest Territories? But either way, whatever. Yeah, it's nothing worse for me. ABCs, right? Remember before? It's like my fire chief buddy always tells the fellas at work at the fire department, ABCs, everybody ABCs. Always be calm. Always be calm. That's something you need to teach everyone. Always be calm. ABCs. Right? I wish someone's got a t-shirt that says that. ABCs. Always be calm. You want to screw up? Panic. Right? You want to screw up? Panic. And there's nothing worse than having bad backup. I've had bad backup a few times over my lifetime where it really, really counts. I've had bad backup, and that sucks. And I mean bad backup meaning, when a grizzly bear charges. Is more notably. I've had 1, 2, I think 2 or 3 people literally run when they shouldn't be running, and leave you. No big deal. I mean, I'd rather be by myself dealing than have somebody panicking, shooting a gun with panic. But there's nothing worse than somebody panicking, right? Like the guy driving. He could have killed everybody because he was panicking. Always be calm. Always be calm. You know? Yeah. Always be calm. It's funny. Remember last fall, we were on top of that mountain, and it was literally, I think I used that. I just use random stuff, B-roll that I have on my laptop at the time. I just go grab something and throw it down. I don't really think too much about it, or the thumbnails even. I think about it. I've done this thousands of times. I don't have thousands of thumbnails, photos to put on a YouTube video in my phone. And I even went on the AI thing the other day. I go, make me a picture of a giant. Put that on, and then I got an email, somebody freaking out because I used AI. But anyway, it wasn't even babbling, but I got off track there. There's a spot there, a video where I show the tops of the poplars that are turning golden in the sunlight. It's just so awesome. I love that sound. And I put the video down, then I panned across, and then there's Sarah trying to hide from that forest. The top of that hill last year is where we were. On clear sky with the sun shining. If the sun's shining and I can see that sun, I'm not lost. I don't need anything. I don't use electronics to navigate, by the way. I don't, never have. But when I went across the top of that hill 3 times, and boom, all of a sudden I was back where I started. Both of us. That really, the third time, because I was the first time was kind of like, huh? How the hell did I end up here? It was so weird. I'm like, wait a minute. That doesn't happen to me, ever. And then I go, okay. So I put this big wallow spot from the elk behind my butt. Sun to the left, not too hard. Went to the top of the hill, not too hard. And I just had to go all the way down to the bottom of the hill and hike out in the timber with the sun right there to my southeast. And then, bam, I'm back at the wallow. where I would have thought I was at least 250 yards away from the wallow. Then all of a sudden I'm there again. I'm like, huh? This is really, really, really weird. And then we went and left again. And we were back at the wallow again. And I'm like, okay, this isn't normal. And I think I did it 3 times. It was 3 times. 3 times. And believe me, I was concentrating on walking over the top of that hill. It's in that video with all the yellow poplars, right there at the top of that hill. And then the 3rd time I looked at Sarah and I went, okay, no matter what happens, we keep our shit together. That was because as soon as I start feeling like, uh-oh, something's going on, I am very, very concerned about whoever's with me losing their shit. We do not panic. And I had to grab her by the shoulders and I go, this happens again. We don't lose our shit. Understand? We stay calm. Okay? She's like, she's freaked out. She's like, okay, okay. And I go, look at me. You stay calm. No matter what happens, we stay calm. And then I did the exact same move again. I put my butt to the wallow and I started going through the timber. Now the sun's almost to more pushing direct south, which puts my face right into the sun. And then went over the top of the hill, exact same route, and went down the hill and hiked out. Explain that one. Anyways, I was just using that as an example of you stay calm. Things start to get threatening or scary, whatever, disorienting, you stay calm. You stop dead in your tracks. You think about what you're doing. You stay calm. You see something big and huge and hairy running, walking, looking at you, you stay calm. You think about what you're doing and you stay calm. What do we got here? Mark this as red. Past life as a Sabe ? And ancient history. Hi, Steve. I've written to you before, but you are not doing your True Talk sessions. I'm sending this to you in haste, so please forgive any errors and or confusion. I hope to clarify things when we speak. All right. After hearing you read a ton of misinformation from Robert Duvall, oh, bold statement, I feel now it's time to contact you. I have taken months to put this together, but now I feel it is time to reach out and let the real truth shine. Not a bunch of confused opinions. Well, you know what? We take from no matter what you share with me in the future or now, we could say that to you too. Where does that get us? It doesn't get us anywhere. Right? It doesn't get us anywhere. The rule here is, not the rule, but what I try to get people to think about, look from this angle is, just take from it what you will or leave it. Right? Take from it what you will or leave it. And if you want to challenge somebody what they say instead of confused opinions or misinformation from Robert Duvall, that's just going to cause a bunch of back and forth bickering like a couple of, you know what I mean. So you take from what you will or leave it, or if you have something you feel is right, you deliver it with, well, this is how I feel this is actually going down. This is what I think. This is the conclusion I came to, but take from what you will or leave it. Right? That keeps everybody at the same coffee table with respect and going at it back and forth smoothly without any bullshit. Right? Now, Chris here from the UK. I'm writing to see if you are into doing a True Talk session with me. I am a qualified past life regressionist, PLR, and teacher, and I'm writing because I've had a session where the client was a Sabe in a past lifetime. I'm sure you would like to ask lots of questions to such a person. I would, and I'd also like to ask how you get qualified. You know what I mean? And I'm just talking straight up, man. I'm not demeaning in any way. I'm talking to you like you're one of my friends sitting at the coffee table, and that's how I talk to everybody here. We're all equal. But yeah, how do you become qualified? You know what I mean? Yeah, I got lots of questions. Carrying on, sorry. They can describe the state of consciousness that they were in, when they were, quote, out of phase, end quote, from this world. There was another past life regressionist that sent in an account, but it was painfully lacking in coherent and or relevant information. So we're here to change that. I also have ancient information on the orbs, and even an ancient relationship link between the Sabe people and the orbs. I also have information on certain Sabe history that is literally written in stone. This information I have never heard on any other channel of the same or similar topic, and yet the hairy beings we refer to are notoriously known about and acknowledged in certain parts of the world, even worshipped. It's a lot of info to share and decipher, so it would be better if we could do it on an online chat. In the image in this email, there is a being in the right of the picture. This image was very close to the image the client saw, only it had its arms closer to its body and facing away. It was in a type of a standing meditation. The original interpretation, was that it must have been an ogre, as it had a huge bone in its right hand. That would be something else if it had a huge bone. Think about how a bone from what would look huge in the hand of a 9-10 foot tall being. A whale bone? An elephant bone? That's about it. Or some animal that we're not familiar with. The client concluded that ogres must be real and that they are extra-dimensional beings, and that they had the ability to be invisible, stand right next to you, and you not even know it, plus the ability to move at super speed, mega zoom eyeballs, godly strength, and perfect night sight. It literally took 8 years until the client made the link between Sabe and what they saw during the session. This confirmed his experience and what he witnessed. Prior to that, Sabe or a Sasquatch was not even a concept. On another important topic, when it comes to quietening the mind, I could share a simple method along with why and how it works. We do not break any religious law, however. We do invoke the true power of the word. I will go into this more if we can chat, but let's just say, John 1 verse 1, quote, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." I had zero idea what that actually meant until I learned hypnosis. And as a PLR teacher, I could also create a very safe and affordable method of regression hypnosis, specifically designed to take the experiencer back to those encounters to find out why they had to experience that during this lifetime. For instance, I could create a method where Sarah could safely take you back to relive your own experiences. Your experience does not have to be subjective. We can prevent any emotional reactions because we switch from mind to soul or spirit. This will enable any practitioner to conduct a regression session anywhere relatively peaceful, even in the comfort of your own home. This will be an invaluable tool for those that wish to know and understand their own experience fully. I will provide scripts and audio demos, and I will provide scripts and audio demos, and I will have to build and pay for a new website. For this, I will need support. I will most likely not be able to start this project until winter because this time of year I am incredibly busy with harvest. Thumbnail from video. It was running beside the car. Mother and child witness it. And here's a previous email never got sent. "Hi Steve, I heard you express great interest in regression hypnosis." Did I? I honestly don't remember showing great interest in regression hypnosis. I had somebody we all know from a world-renowned musical band, want to do that, and I encouraged him to do that from something happened in his childhood where something was standing over his tent looking down into that fly top because it was summertime. He didn't have the cover on. And he contacted me and without me bringing his name publicly forward. But that's about it for me. I myself became a teacher after 5 years of QHHT practice and eventually created my own method. And After regressing hundreds of clients over an 8-year period, patterns quickly start to emerge and solidify, especially with regards to the journey of the soul. What do we see upon leaving the physical form? Are past lives real? Do Sabe go to the heavenly realm upon leaving the body? What is the soul? What is God? Being a past life regression teacher / practitioner, you get to hear in every session the client's NDE / near-death experience. I must also add that I was part of a session where the client was a Sabe. I heard you read a hypnosis account that was painfully lacking in information, even though it seemed like it was from the horse's mouth. In another session, my client was indeed guarding a portal that was in a tree, and they described themselves as a hairy giant. And as you know, we can get much more info direct from the experiencer. Validation for me was the fact that the client knew nothing of these beings and did not realize what they were until 8 years later, after coming across a few Sasquatch programs on YouTube. They realized that they had described the conical head, no neck, super speed, and built like a 12-foot tall brick shithouse. Not to mention night vision, super zoom, and trans-dimensional abilities. On top of that, the client lives in the UK. It would be great if we could do a live 2-hour session and possibly let the viewers grill me and ask the experiencer questions. 1 hour is maybe not enough. At this point, it may be diligent, quote, not, end quote, to divulge too much until we are live. But what I can mention is that there is a massive chunk of extremely valid history missing, and I intend to fill it. Proof of the history is literally written in stone and right under people's noses. I'm just not certain if 2 hours could fit it all in, but it's worth a go. One thing I found out that was very intriguing about Sabe, one of the First Nations people said, quote, they can dwell in their own copy of our world when they are not here, end quote. Or words to that effect. My only question is, how is it even possible to have that type of information? And yet, from the client's perspective, it is incredibly accurate, which is even more baffling. On a side note, I could go into how easy it is to become hypnotized. A very hard pill for many to swallow. I tried to get hypnotized before. Didn't happen. I know you don't vet people, but it may be worth chatting prior to this event to see if this is worthy of sharing or not. We could raise more money for those in need and or even release the episode to the whole public. 6-12 months later. This quantum terminology that is being propagated on the web is pseudo-Buddhism. The terminology has simply been changed. The only difference possibly is in the Western quantum physics, you'll never understand anything. But in Eastern Buddhism, you become enlightened. Go figure. As you probably know, Buddhism is not a religion, it is a way of being. The same can be said for Hinduism. Both these practices have the potential to bring enlightenment, and that enlightenment brings an overstanding of our innate and subdued abilities. You have had many people writing into you that have given bits of the pieces. I intend to bring them back into view and put that puzzle together. Anyways, I'll keep this short and hope to hear from you soon. Wishing you, yours, the club, all of the best. Chris from the UK, and here is the thumbnail with what? Whoops, shit. Stupid phones. Okay, hold on, you guys. It's all right. There we go. There's the thumbnail. There we go. There. Okay, man. We will, let me mark this as look into for Sarah. Who knows when this will go down? Who knows? Maybe we could even do it while I'm away. I'm gonna be talking to a lot of you while I'm away, because just so you know, while it's so hot out, you basically, our days consist of going in the woods about an hour and a half before seeing light, parking the quad, hiking in with our coffee, and sitting there and listening in the dark. And then as soon as that sun comes right up and gets really hot, it's over. So we have the whole day to fart around. So I'm thinking some days I will take some time out to do that. More episodes on the True Talk. And we'll have a chat and we'll see what you got. All right? Pre-warn, you can't come on here and start running other people down that have shared here. You can't do it. Okay? You can't do it. Respect's number one here. Everybody's on their own ride. Everybody's got their own puzzle they're trying to fill in the pieces, right? And then some people are very generous and they share their puzzle progress here with us. And we definitely do not want to convince people that this is not a safe place to do it by calling them out, calling them down on what they have come up with on their time. You know what I mean? Now what do we got? What do we got? What is this? Gotta catch 'em all is the title of this email. That's a Pokemon reference. I don't know why I know that. I don't know shit. I don't even know. Doesn't make sense to me so far. Anyways, not that I want to bring harm to any living creature. I think I could lure one of these beings into a specific spot of my choosing. Really? I've emailed you plenty of times as I'm an avid researcher. In the subject, quote, everything they don't want us to know, end quote. Now, what is a common thread amongst this topic? There are many, but one that highlights a lot of attributes applied to Sasquatch: energy. More specifically, the use for. You got nuclear scientists writing in saying they are well known, spoken in secret, and have been attracted specifically to this industry. You have Bigfoot researchers walking around with Geiger counters now, and recording brief spikes when in the field. Another common occurrence is equipment malfunctioning. All sorts of technology, brand new, tried and true, seems to malfunction right at a critical juncture. Then there is the draining of batteries. Again, brand new, fully charged. Every flashlight you carry has been drained. Then there's physical distress, often looked over in many reports. Symptoms of nausea and dry mouth. Both symptoms of radiation or strong electromagnetic fields. Also, symptoms of extreme adrenaline blast, right? Also. Lastly, the display of glowing eyes and the notion they travel through dimensions to produce altering colors of varied intensity coming from its eyes is so crazy, but we've seen it. Is it produced chemically, like bioluminescent? Or is energy being generated and stored in biologic batteries? Or is theirs a third option we have yet to see, let alone understand? Certain types of squid have adapted camouflage which renders them virtually invisible. If Bigfoot possessed this or something similar, it would certainly aid in how it abruptly disappears, blends in completely to any habitat, or appears to dissolve. Possibly into another world even. So by using keen observational skill and knowing the material, one could logically theorize Bigfoot and or its offshoots possess an ability to either create, locate, or absorb and store an amount of electricity in one form or another. If it is transdimensional, I would then postulate it has access to the aether, a timeless pocket, dimension of sorts controlled and created by our consciousness. It is the thin veil which separates our reality from the next. Get ready, Steve. I'm going to make this as brief as possible. But we're sliding down the rabbit hole now, folks. Ha ha ha. The aether, A-E-T-H-E-R, aether, is where zero-point energy comes from, where the Akashic record is located, a place where tiny chips of our soul land and become spirits, where lower being try to breach our realm from. Also, how I believe these craft can travel so far or disappear in one location and reappear in another. we humans can gain access to this etheric network, but through consciousness in the form of astral travel, not physically. Once there, we can create our physical form, but physical beings and technology can gain access through a plasma bridge, naturally and randomly created or purposely opened. Connecting our reality to this just out of phase plane is very important. It surrounds us and protects us. We see UFOs engulfed in plasma, so they look made from it, and thus can enter. Pilots in and around the Bermuda Triangle have described entering a tunnel of mist and lightning, which surrounds the craft in converse, I think you meant, and covers it in tiny charges. Lightning, made of plasma. There's another type of naturally occurring plasma within nature, St. Elmo's fire. Reported with or adjacent to many Bigfoot sightings are glowing white or blue or amber, etc. colored orbs appearing. Described as being intelligent, and when reported together, each with a different nuance or personality. The correlation? What if those orbs are the Sabe? That is their plasma bridge to the aether or wherever they come from. Another dimension on Earth? Okay, with all that being said, I started out talking about catching one. I keep thinking if we charged up, say, 100 or so lithium batteries from drills or other equipment, get them fully charged and hide them deep in the woods, away from quartz, people, equipment, ley lines, nuclear sites, anywhere you can monitor. Placed with a great vantage point and downwind. And since we have a focused and condensed energy signature, if they so go it, move it around with different strengths. See how dedicated they are to getting a free boost. Imagine being able to predict with a certain degree of accuracy when and where they'll show up. Conspiracy Classroom 101, LOL. Now I got a bunch. Use malleable lead to protect batteries? Sincerely, Johnny GPT. Okay, man, well, who knows? You might be onto something. Maybe give it a go. But I think at this stage of the game, I don't know if this is valid or not. I don't know. I'm leaning towards it is, but I have a funny feeling these people that said they know your intentions before you even get out of your frickin' vehicle. Right? That's the word on the street. Seems to be there seems to be enough receipts to back that statement up, that they know your intentions before you even go out there to start messing around to try to fool them. Right? So far, what we've had shared here, the act of trying to fool these people doesn't work. Doesn't work. And so far, from what I've been watching and observing, listening to, just absolute pure honesty seems to work. More than anything. Right? From what we've been hearing from all the people here, going out there and throwing yourself down in a neutral, honest, absolute, transparent state seems to get results more than anything. I don't know. Give it a go, man. Give it a go. Let me know how you're making out. Am I going to try to fool them intentionally? Not me. Not me, I'm not. I've learned. I've tried everything. For me, my ride, no. But you may be onto something for those who have interest. You never know. Be interesting to hear somebody's trials and errors and what happens. Holy shizzle. This next email might be our new record for length. And it's definitely too late into the morning to tackle this one. So I'm not going to mark that as read. I'll have to hit that another time. All right. Okay, here's this next one's titled, My Bigfoot Story. My name is Joel. And I had a couple of really unique experiences in my life. I'm about 35. But the first time I really realized these things were real, I was just a kid, and I was out camping with my dad and his friends and some other kids. Myself and one of the other boys were sharing a tent, and the other person with me started shining his light around right near where the sun went down, and suddenly we see this shadow of something right outside our tent. At first we thought it was one of our dads trying to scare us, but We tried to ask them who it was, and there's no response. The unusual thing about the outline was that it had a pointy head, and we thought his dad was wearing a beanie or something. Wake up the next day, and we ask our dads why they were outside our tent, and they have no idea what we are talking about. We ask them where the hat is, and there was no hat. It was the middle of summer, and no one had a beanie or anything that could make that shape. We even looked through his dad's stuff. Turns out my friend's dad, who was a farmer, had actually seen one of these creatures before, and he told us about it and what it looked like. That experience always sat in the back of my head, even up until I was an adult, but I didn't really know what to think about it. I'd done a lot of fishing in my early 20s, and where I grew up is a place in eastern Washington state called Walla Walla, and specifically the Blue Mountains. That's where all this occurred. Looking up and researching fishing and hiking spots, I started to stumble on the occasional Bigfoot story. It turns out a famous researcher by the name of Paul Freeman had been in my area during the most of the 80s and 90s and had a pretty sizable following in the Bigfoot community because he had been a forest ranger and ran into one and nearly spent his life searching for proof. I read a lot of the subject and about Paul and others because I thought it was interesting, but I thought, well, this is so rare I may never get near one. A local newspaper reporter named Vance Orchard had written a book on the topic, and I read it all the way through. One of the interesting things about reading this book was it had listed all sorts of places I was well aware of and grew up near my entire life, so they were only a short drive away. I filed these back in the back of my mind. I spent maybe 3 or 4 years going out into the Blue Mountains every chance I got. Now, there is some federal land way out there called the Wanaha Tucanon wilderness area, and it has some really prime elk hunting. And I had heard, but I hadn't been out there. The upper reaches of these mountains, especially a decade ago, were covered with snow most of the year, and this particular year was summer of '08. I drove up one day to see where the snow line was with a friend, and we hit deep snow, so we really didn't get to go very far. And I wanted to go to this campground I'd heard of called Squaw Springs, then Skyline Campground now, and camp out a night or two. It was also mentioned in the books. And I'd been to most of the other places in the book, so this is really kind of the unexplored territory for me, but interesting nonetheless. I'd hiked everywhere I could and not seen anything in the last few years, so I expected this trip to be the same. I contacted the rangers about a week later, and turns out the snow had melted pretty quickly. And now the pass was clear, but this time my friend couldn't go with me. No big deal. I was just going to go camp out a night or two and go home. I drove up to this campground about noon or so. It's August, hot day, and my car had been having trouble overheating from time to time. I get out to look around, and I hear a kind of a growling noise. I initially thought it was my car. A low, guttural, almost gargling noise that happens for a few seconds, stops, and then I hear it again a minute or two later, again. At first I thought it was my overheating car because of the regular intervals at which it was happening. The way it resonated almost sounded like a drain, and I've never heard anything like it before. Like a drain or a train? Spelt drain. And I've never heard anything like it before or since, and I've camped out at this same spot just last year, and trust me, it still creeps me out 11 years later. No doubt. There was one other person who had gotten there before me, but this was really an out-of-the-way spot, and I thought, well, there must be some explanation for the noise. I started setting up my tent for a while and get everything situated, and I had a mallet in my car to hammer down my tent poles. And I hear something hit behind me, like a large rock or something hit the ground, but I didn't see what it was. Now at this point, I hear the growling noises again, every few minutes, but also slaps of like wood hitting wood. And this is really confusing. Bigfooters call this wood knocking, but I had no idea at the time what it even was, or if it was a common noise, something made, until I started asking people and heard some similar stories about it related to Bigfoot. I'm still setting up my tent, and at one point, it almost sounded like this wood hitting wood noise was mimicking me hitting tent posts into the ground. This was starting to get odd. I go back to my car and grab my camcorder. Smartphones were not much of a thing in '08. And I hear something moving in the brush, so I think, this is whatever the F this thing is, I'm going to get it on camera. Start recording, and I go toward where I hear some rustling. All that was there was a deer. Whew, I thought, it's nothing. All in my mind. So I go back to the car, and the noises are gone, so I decide maybe I should take a hike to a spot a mile or two away down the trail. I hike for a ways and start seeing like thin outlines of feet. And at this point, I think my imagination's getting the best of me. I have no idea what to think or how to process this. I go over a few small hills, and then I get to this point where there is a side of a grade and a narrow spot between two hills that goes further down towards the Winaha River and the lower part of the area. Well, lo and behold, on the side of this hill, in a clearing, in perfect mud, I see the biggest footprint I've ever seen in my life. Had to be about 1.5 feet long, 5 very clear toes, a heel, and I just sit there and stare at it and stare at it. Look where I came from and look back down at it, just wondering what the hell I've come across. There was definitely no claws to be found in this print, and there are more prints coming up to this point and going down into the lower area. I feel a creature at some point has used this spot for getting down into the valley and back up to the high point I was at. Wow. Things start winding down. I hike a bit more. I go back to camp. The other people who were there had left, and I start to get things settled in my tent. It's nice and cooler now and feels good because it had been so hot. I start to settle in, and all of a sudden I hear the growling noises again. I ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. I keep hearing it every minute or two. Now I start to think back. Oh shit, my car's been off for hours now. Now I'm really paranoid. The noises keep going and going, and it's just past dark. It starts to sound closer. It sounds like whatever it is growling right at me. I've never been scared hiking or camping in the woods, but this had me absolutely terrified. Finally, I can't take it anymore. I don't even collapse my tent. I get my flashlight and throw everything in the back of the car as fast as I can. I didn't even look back, and sometimes I wonder just how close this thing was from me. I went back into town, and I was so scared I started pacing back and forth down the main street in Walla Walla to calm my nerves. I run into this girl I knew, and she even commented right away how visibly shaken I looked. I didn't even know what to say to her. And that was really the end of it. I will forever wonder about that night. That was the turning point when I knew these things were real. And I think about it every once in a while and wonder what these things are. I have dreams about seeing one even all these years later. It haunts me. I live in Seattle now, but I still go back to visit my old favorite part of the woods in Walla Walla. I really love the Blue Mountains, and it really feels like home to me despite that crazy thing that happened. But it is quite the mystery to me. I'll always go to my spots, but it's been 11 years, and nothing like that has happened again. I really like that you're so bold about this because no one believes me when I tell this story. It just seems so far outside of their reality to them. You seem like a really stand-up guy. If you're ever in the Seattle area, let me know. I'd like to buy you a beer and shake your hand sometime. The world's a lot more wild than I think people realize, and that sense of adventure really speaks to me. I don't think I'll ever stop just wanting to be out there in the middle of the woods, enjoying every minute of it. Thanks for reading my story, Joel Smith. Joel Smith, this sounds a little familiar. Maybe I read it, maybe I didn't, but it's a great read. I've got a lot of emails marked as unread. So many. And so many come in every day. And I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. There you go. So it kind of reminds me, I shared this before, but that one time when I was intentionally trying to figure out where these people were when I was living in Pemberton. And I went up towards Birkenhead Lake. And I was just past my old girlfriend's place where her house got slapped, where a buddy of mine lived a couple other rural properties down the road, and he had 200-pound sacks of potatoes lifted out of his truck and taken away. And he'd already had a face-to-face encounter years ago he didn't want to talk about. And I remember he was so pissed off. I'll tell you that story right now quickly. Actually, our neighbor across the road is a potato farmer. And everybody used to come to my place for beers. You know, like Guy beers, barn beers. And we're all having a beer. And my friend was managing a restaurant in Whistler. And the potato farmer, he brought his potato order for the restaurant to my place to meet him there. And threw the 200-pound sacks of potatoes into the box of his truck. And then the next day, I guess he wakes up at home, which is up towards Birkenhead Lake area. And along the Birkenhead River, which there's been so many sightings on that chunk of road, is ridiculous. And he goes, "What'd you guys do with my potatoes? Did you guys hide my potatoes?" And I go, "What are you talking about? You guys took my potatoes last night. Where are they? I got to take them to work." I'm like, "Dude, like we took your 100-pound sacks of potatoes. What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, I'm on my way in and they're not in my truck. They're gone." Right? Wasn't no bear. And I remember going, "Well, it wasn't us and definitely wasn't a bear. There'd be potatoes all over the ground around your pickup truck, and bears don't." And it's also, there's fish in the river then too. But anyway, he was really pissed off. But getting back to my original story. So, and then just farther up river was my old girlfriend's place who had her house slapped, and they left the antique camera on the back side of the mountain behind their private property where you can't get to from the paved road, is what I'm saying. Anyway, so I used to go up I went up this road, which goes to the backside of Tenquill Lake. They put a gate up and deactivated the bridge to get in there now. But I went up there, and from what I think, I was winding towards a place called Hope Creek, but from the southeast. Yeah, I'm coming from the southeast. And I got up to where I believed would be where it's more likely that these people are here on my old quad. And I go all the way, quite a ways in there by myself. And then finally got to the end of the road. I couldn't go any further. And I'm sitting there, and there was a little bit of a logging clear cut on the lower side of the road. And it was about 75 yards of clear cut to the timber. And a slight downhill slope looking down there. And I could hear a thumping coming up out of that timber, crystal clear, over the top of my motor as I'm sitting on the quad. I could hear this pounding on the ground. It was almost like so many people describe, it was kind of like it'd be like if somebody had a boulder and was pounding into the ground. Boom, 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 about that fast. What did I do? Well, I did what most people looking for Bigfoot does when they find them. I turned around and peeled out of there. Whatever. But it turns out later on, years later, I found out that I was basically about not even a quarter mile away from where an elderly man years ago allegedly brought them food all the time and had the Polaroid photos of them. And I talked to a first-hand eyewitness who knew the man and saw the photos. Go figure. Anyways, I'm just saying about the pounding the ground. And then at the time I was smacking my Est-wing shingling hammer, but I used it for trapping, and I was hammering 3-inch staples into the side of that huge tree, and then the blast started coming back from above me. Anyway, babbling, rambling. I'm gonna go pack. I'm gonna pack my stuff so we can get out of here. I don't know when we're gonna leave. Tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning. I don't know. Waiting for the house sitters are trying to get here today from the mainland, so I'm gonna go out, pack my stuff, get ready to go. Then what am I gonna do? Now that I missed opening morning, I might just go straight to where I lost the bolt from my rifle and do that walk because I flagged it out and see if maybe we can find it first with the bare eyes. And if I can't, then we're gonna go make camp over to where my knife was placed in my backpack, about 12 miles away from there. Isn't it coincidence where I lost my knife? Where I lost my knife as the crow flies is probably 1 mile away from where I lost the bolt to my rifle. And where my knife was placed in my backpack was this time of year, probably this exact week. about 12 miles as the crow flies away. And that's where we're going to go camp this time. Kind of coincidental, right? We'll see what happens. I'm kind of hoping I find my bolt to my rifle on my own. But if I don't, and it shows up in my backpack, well, I guess we got something to talk about, don't we? Anyway, share my story at howtohunt.com. Get me your truth, all right? Get me your truth. And or get us your truth. I mean, get us your truth. I'll be back later.